Chateau 25, an excellent year for spring water. Thank you. You know, if you were passing out the Chardonnay, I wonder how many takers you'd have. It's not just for breakfast anymore, yes, I know. Okay. You ready? Okay. Good morning. We'd like to welcome you to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Niagara. And of course you know, or maybe you don't know, my name is Ron Skowronski. And I'll be your entertainment for the day. We'd like to open our service this morning with the opening words as given to us by Maya Angelou, as we have come to the conclusion of October and the beginning of November. It's entitled Late October. Carefully, the leaves of autumn sprinkle down the tinny sound of little dyings, and skies sated of ruddy sunsets, of rosette dawns, roil ceaselessly in, cobweb grays, and turn to black for comfort. Only lovers see the fall, a signal end to endings, a gruffish gesture alerting those who will not be alarmed and that will begin to stop in order to simply to begin again. You'll find the chalice lighting words, of course, in the inside of your bulletin. And if you'll please repeat with me, may the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve you, Spirit of freedom. If you'll now to the, turn in your hymnal to hymn number 306. That has potential. That could become a family favorite. I'm serious. Excuse me. Our responsive reading tonight is 651 tonight, this morning. Can you tell I'm having a great morning? This hour, what is it? Spring forward, fall back? No, it's fall back. I've fallen. Anyway, as I begin, if you'll please express the second stanza in tandem. It's called "The Body is Humankind." I am a single cell in the body of 4 billion cells. The body is humankind. I am interlocked with other human beings in the consequences of our actions, thoughts, and feelings. Together, we share the quest for a society of the whole equal to our needs. We are single cells in a body of 4 billion cells. The body is humankind. Thank you. We now come to that portion of our service that we refer to as honoring our joys and sorrows. Oh, okay, that's good. In the tradition of the Church of Rome, specifically more in the Spanish-speaking world, the 1st of November is designated as the All Saints' Day, and the 2nd of November is designated as All Souls' Day. And if you put that together with other aspects of that same tradition, it is a recognition of those who have gone on through what I call the change called death. And many times it's an opportunity for us to revisit the memory of those that we have loved and that are no longer amongst us. And so I light this candle in memory of them, in gratitude for the blessings that we have been given through their lives, and with a covenant that I choose to make of myself and pray others would make also, that we would, as we have just affirmed, strive to make a world where justice and peace is the norm rather than the exception. And one other, if I may, I don't conceive of this as a sorrow. I consider this a pain, so to speak. You folks have become, obviously, and I've said it a few times before, more than people that I singularly preach to and serve. You have become very much a second family to me, and I'm so grateful. And so it is in that spirit that I must report to you that back to the doctor I went last Friday, And I'm very grateful that my lovely wife was with me, because I was not a happy fellow when I was walking out the door and a little shaken. But it looks like some of the consequences of my prostate surgery are still visiting me and are going to require some surgical intervention. So hopefully in the next couple of days, I will get some type of idea as to when I'm going to probably go back to Millard Fillmore and have some, I won't call it major plumbing, but shall we just call it that which will make my life a lot easier and a lot more comfortable. Not without discomfort at the moment, obviously, because nobody likes to go in for surgical procedures, as we all know. But I ask you that, of course, if you keep me, in your good thoughts and your affirmations. There are times in this process that I have viewed thoughts and prayers as crickets and tumbleweeds, as many of us tend to at times. But I do know that the positive energy that you send forth, in my opinion anyway, has an exceptional impact on me, so I am grateful. So that is all the news that's fit to print, more to be coming. Anyone else for a joy or a sorrow? Yes, please. Well, there's a bag of candles here, so you're good.
Oh, good. I have moccasins, so I'm really happy about that. I'm not so happy about the fact that my great nephew passed away on Wednesday morning, leaving behind 2 public school age children and of course my great niece Rachel. So I'll light a candle for that. And I had the opportunity to do another fun show for big money, despite of my hand. And they didn't throw tomatoes or anything, so that was really cool. I was super happy about that. And then when I was finished, they just sat there. I thought, well, you can leave now. And then I said, well, what, you can go home, or do you want me to sing something else? So I guess that's a good thing to be happy about.
Great.
Anyone else?
I just wanted to light a candle of gratitude for you, Ron.
Thank you.
And how much I know everyone else appreciates your making the trek up to this corner of Western New York, and how much it has meant having your words of wisdom and spiritual guidance have meant to me, and just wanted to wish you well.
Thank you.
As we age, we have often have these medical adventures, and I of course, are wishing you very, very good outcomes.
Thank you.
And
thank you.
That's it.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Thank you. I don't know what this is, a joy or sorrow. It's just a little story relating to like aging or something. And I realize I'm not in like my age cohort here, but last Sunday, I left church didn't do a coffee hour because Emerson and Abby were going to do the trick-or-treating on Center Street in Lewiston. It was a beautiful day out. He went in and got his candy and stuff. And then we're driving back up the escarpment, like on the Parkway, and I'm like, oh my, I was just like overwhelmed with the beauty of the gorge. I'm like, oh my God, look at it, look at it, look at you guys, can you believe it? And so we stopped at the Devil's Hole exit, like, let's get out and just take a look and look around, blah, blah, blah. So then they decide, like, let's walk down Devil's Hole. And I haven't, like, exercised in a while. And I'm doing this fasting thing, so I hadn't eaten in like 24 hours. Because on the way out of Lewiston, I stopped at the pizza place, but they said, no, you gotta wait 15 minutes. So I said, no, we'll just go home and eat. But we didn't go home, we went to the Devil's Hole. So we go down Devil's Hole, it's not a problem walking down. I get down, and I'm sitting down there on the rocks, and then my legs are shaking already when I'm sitting on the rocks down there, thinking how beautiful it is. And they're climbing on the rocks and doing everything, and I'm just sitting there. And then we have to go back up. And I'm trying to like count the steps, so I'm like 220. And then Emerson stops and takes, I felt fine. Like I didn't stop, I was just like in my head counting the steps going up. And then I'm not sure if this caused it or not, but Emerson stopped to take a break, so I stopped to take a break. I'm sitting there for like 2 minutes, and I'm like, oh guys, I don't feel good, I don't feel good. So I like nearly passed out. So I sat on the ground there. I just felt really weak. Thankfully, I was like, oh my God, you shouldn't have done this fasting, blah, blah, blah. And took a bar out of a bag for Emerson, like protein bar, gave it to me, and I was fine, it was not a problem. Emerson was terrified. But then we get home, and then I feel like it's all done. And the next day, in the next 2 or 3 days, my calves are hurting me like so bad. I didn't know that like my calves were underworked out or something, but like my calves were really, really hurting me that for the next 3 days. And yeah, that was my story, but it was really beautiful. And it's beautiful out there right now, and I'm grateful for that.
That's beautiful, thank you.
But now it has made me like think, and I'm gonna start like working out again and like taking care of my health again, because I want to climb down Devil's Hole in the future.
Sounds like a New Year's resolution to me. Anyone else, please? Okay. Now we come to that portion of our service that's referred to as the offering. And we, of course, gratefully remind you that it is through your generosity and your support that it makes this ministry possible. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. this month's theme given unto us through the Unitarian Universalist Association is encouraging gratitude. And as I mentioned earlier, at least implied, if I may say so, October and November are very interesting months because, as I mentioned during Joys and Sorrows, toward the end of the month, there is a significant indication that we are preoccupied with the concept of death, and whether that be All Hallows Eve or Los Deos Mortes, is that how it's pronounced? The Day of the Dead, which of course would be November 1st, and All Saints Day, All Souls Day, and of course those have some, if you will, theological connotations, but ultimately that period of time is indeed when we contemplate our mortality, when we contemplate that existential angst that we have about the ending of life, and whether it be the ending of the life of someone that we hold dear or many people that we hold dear, it is also always going to reflect back to our own conscience, our own mind, our own psyche, the reflection of what that means to us. And then we go into, of course, November. And November is that period of time where we seem to, in some instances, and maybe I'm being a bit melodramatic, but we kind of collectively lose our minds. We have this great push. Well, of course, it's the necessity of getting ready for the joy, if you will, of winter, as we all do have such great memories of all these wonderful winters here in New York State. But we also come to that period of time where we reflect, again, on what is now this month's theme, gratitude. And we're always taught from the time, as we once said down south, we were knee-high to grasshoppers. I've always wondered who does measure the knees of grasshoppers, but that's another issue. That we should be grateful. We should be grateful. And of course, the recognition, the juxtaposition, and it's an unwinnable argument, by the way, is there are always people who have far less than you, who are going through more than you are, and therefore you should be grateful. And of course, I suspect that is where that old chestnut comes from. When you see somebody who is going through a very trying or a difficult time, you would say, "There, but for the grace of God go I." Anybody remember hearing that? Okay. Well, as I often say, being more of a good Unitarian Universalist than anything else, much of that kind of thinking is very theistic thinking. It's the same kind of thinking that says, the good Lord, he giveth, and the good Lord, he taketh away. And then ultimately things like, you don't hear the what I prefer, the biblical quotation, that the good Lord causes his righteous rain to fall upon the just and the unjust. No, you hear that basically the implication, it's very Calvinistic. It amazes me how we are still dynamically influenced by the teachings of Calvin, that basically God can reward you tremendously, or squash you like a grape. And that bothers me. And it bothers me because it sets up a psychology of dichotomy. And we're very, very, still to this very day, confused as to where we stand in the universe. Are we, as to put it poetically, sons and daughters of God, Or is God something that is, I'll say very Old Testament, more angry and more judgmental and more punishing? And we seem to continue to have this dichotomy, this confusion over and over and over again. And so ultimately, I do believe that I understand why the general consensus in the Unitarian Universalist approach is not, and I'll even I've stepped back from this a little bit, is not to become atheistic, not to believe that there is, quote, I'll use the term that many people are familiar with, a power or a consciousness that is greater than we are, but that ultimately, in order to to leave that dichotomy behind that basically makes God either a universal vending machine, or a universal friolator. You do all remember what a friolator is, don't you? Okay. That's going back a few years. But anyway, so I came to the conclusion, because a lot of times people will say, I'm grateful. And I say, grateful to what? Grateful to whom? And if they're honest and they really stop being theistic, the kind of theology that is very anthropomorphic, the kind of theology that is very human, or it's oriented in its humanity, that makes God nothing more than a big daddy, if you will, then people freeze. I freeze, because I ask myself, as I'm going to be hopefully sitting and at a Thanksgiving table this coming toward the end of this month, I'm going to be asking, to whom or to what am I grateful? To whom or to what am I grateful? And I come to the conclusion that the humanist expression is probably, and I want to use this word cautiously because, again, I don't want to be misunderstood, but the humanist concept is the wisest. Because I don't want to constantly be living in some kind of a mix of anxiety and euphoria, that one day God can be for me and the next day God can be agin me. And there are theologies, by the way, New Thought, if you remember that fundamentally affirms that God is nothing but love, and that God is ever progressing, giving positive energy, giving upliftment, encouragement, etc. And there is absolutely a denial, a rejection in the most powerful manner of God as punisher, judge, jury, and to that extent, executioner. I mean, my God, even to this day, we can send rockets into space. There's contemplation of sending people to Mars. We are close to curing, pardon me, a variety of long-standing major diseases, and yet there are still untold numbers of human beings who basically believe that when somebody has some bad times or something unfortunate happen, that they'll blame, and I'll use the word not judiciously but pointedly, they'll blame God. It's God's will. We can't argue with God's will. And I'm like, basic humanist, who says? I'm like Ayn Rand at that point. Who says you can't argue with the will? What it boils down to, and I've said this to you before and I'll say it again, that ultimately our religious expression is still very theistic, and our religious expression changes in direct proportion to our psychological, our emotional, and ironic, and of course, our physical well-being. So you find that when people are going through ridiculously difficult times, they turn to God as potential helper, redeemer, savior, etc. And yet when things are going fantastic, no problems, then there is less emphasis on anything religious. There is more of an emphasis on basically just enjoying the moment. I feel very strongly that ultimately what has to occur, as I mentioned a little bit ago, is the recognition that, well, the question I asked, whom are we grateful to? What are we grateful to? Gratitude in of itself is not a denial of, let's say, negative circumstances. If you look at the world today, okay, I'm not just talking about the good old US of A, I'm talking about the planet, the climate of the planet, the economic situation, all of that. You would say to yourself, and people say it to me, they say it to me often, well, you know, the Lord must be punishing us. And I'm thinking, why? Well, look at all the, all of this that's happening. We just can't wait for someone to come along and redeem us or save us. Humanists have always said, again, save you from what? And the answer that nobody wants to say, because it's the 800-pound gorilla in the room, is that anything and everything that we have in our world is a direct and in many times even an indirect manifestation of what we think. Because think motivates us to develop that thought and ultimately to do something about it. So when you have a mixed message, on 1 minute I'm punished, on 1 minute I'm saved, very little progress really happens. There's progress, but it is born of usually incredible willpower. Usually born on the backs, if you will, of agnostics, atheists, people who are not particularly religious, but understand that science, as Albert Einstein did, is an investigation of the mystery, the absolute mystery of that which we call life. And that the more we understand and the more that we can implement science, the better off we're going to be if we cognicize, as any good biologist would cognicize, that we're all in this together, that we're all united. We cannot develop philosophies and theologies that, or I should say not develop, but continue to espouse them and identify with them so that we have, unfortunately, what we now have in our country, us versus them. And there's a lot of, now there's even more different kinds of us's and different kinds of thems. And what you have when that, from a biological point of view, when that occurs, is you get a dis-ease, an imbalance in the system, and many times that balance in biology is something that is called cancer. Cancer. So you have these various people coming forth, and I'm not speaking just of, for example, a Buddha or a Jesus or Lao Tzu or any of these great ancient philosophers and theologians, but you have modern folks that are coming about, and whether they base their point of view on what they've learned from the ancients, they have sure. Demon possessed again, are we, dear? Okay. That no matter what you do, you ultimately have to reconcile yourself to the notion that, again, what we have done, we've done to ourselves. But here's, and that we have to look at these moderns, people like, for example, Howard Zin. Has anybody ever read Howard Zin? I see one head shaking. Anybody else? You got to read Howard Zin. Here's why. Howard was just a simple man. He's just passed away about maybe 7 years ago, a simple man who served in the United States Air Force, served our country with distinction, got his GI Bill, got his degree in philosophy and political science, and then began to do something that I encourage everybody to do, no matter how young or how old you are. He studied history. Not the mythologies and the rewritten histories and all this other nonsense, but honest to goodness history. And then he wrote books like, I'm maybe messing up the title at the moment, basically the history of the United States. When I bought that book and I started reading it, you know, I had people sometimes come up to me if I were reading like in my office at the church, and you go, "Are you all right?" I go, "Yeah, I'm fine. What's wrong?" He says, "I keep passing by your door, you know, every once in a while, and all I keep hearing is, 'Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God.'" The history is horrifying. It's absolutely horrifying. And then you read another contemporary, Chris Hedges. Chris Hedges studied theology and philosophy, I believe at Harvard, was very involved in Middle East politics, the study of Middle East politics and culture for many, many years, and has written a number of books, and then written books, I believe, with other co-authors, pointing out things like the dichotomies that I've been talking about this morning. But not the theological and philosophical dichotomies as much as the consequences. The consequences. You know, and one of the things I'm sure he would agree with me, and I'm just going to touch on it ever so briefly. You have now over 60,000 human beings who have been, if I may be a little poetic, because it's such, you know, it's such a horrible statistic, 60,000 Palestinians who have been catapulted, so to speak, into eternity as a result of this horrific genocide that's occurring in Gaza. And I believe at least 4,000 of them, if not more, were children. Now, let me tell you something. Do you honestly believe in your heart of hearts that that is going to end well? That people don't remember when they've been hurt? And this idea of forgive and live and let live and let's sing kumbaya is going to go by the wayside until they can figure out to build bigger and better rockets, bullets, and bombs to continue this insanity in that part of the world and in so many other parts of the world. So Chris Hedges is pointing out that we as not only individuals, but as collective groups, the United States of America, if you will, need to wake up. Need to wake up to realities, need to wake up to how we as individuals impact other individuals so that we can talk about these issues, so that we understand at absolute core that if we don't solve them unilaterally or universally, they will never be solved. People are waiting for the return of Jesus. I'm not here to trample on a belief system, but all I'm saying is they've been waiting 2,000 years. Because Jesus made it very plain. Love yourself, love your neighbor as yourself. That's it. And if you do that, people will know that you are my disciples. That's the sum and substance of the Christian gospel. That's the good news. Because the better news is if we did that, and just like things would get systemically better, because they're getting individually better. We're not focusing on us and them anymore. We are striving to recognize it is all us. And Hedges points that out in more, not so much, again, even though he's got the background, theological ways, but in political ways, in sociological ways, that we need to study and work with. Albert Einstein. A lot of people don't understand. Albert Einstein was a Zionist. But as he grew older and began to see what was beginning to happen, especially with the proliferation of thermonuclear devices, he began to understand that unless we pulled it together as a unity, I mean, I'll use that old American, if you will, I call it a motto that I'm using way too much nowadays. United, we can do nothing but stand. Divided, we've already fallen. We've already fallen. And I ask people many times that I come in contact with on a day-to-day basis, how do you feel about this? Or how do you feel about that? And if they give me something that is not progressive, universal, and contextual in terms of unifying the human family, my only question is, how's that working out so far for you? The answer is it isn't. It never has, and it never will. And so ultimately, though, and here's, I think, a very, I'll call it, much to your gratitude, my final point. If we look beyond everything that I've shared with you and can still sit around that table and express gratitude, knowing that the more we strive to be living in aspirational terms, the more we aspire to live to our values, live to our principles, understanding that we are all in this life, this mystery, this eternal, infinite mystery, call it God, if you will, call it whatever, or even if you just understand, again, from pure biological and sociological terms, that when things harmonize, when things seek to strike balance and order, that nothing but good can come of it. So I am grateful that I associate with people of like mind. I'm also grateful that I associate with people of other points of view. And while I am obligated by our covenant of right relations, not only within the church, but outside of the church, I am obligated to hold their dignity in my heart. Yet I can hopefully agree to disagree in such a manner where we can understand each other, but the clearest understanding is that we must come to compromise and be grateful for such compromises and such growth. You know, there's not a person sitting here who hasn't understood the bitterness of warfare. Whether you were growing up during the Second World War, in maybe a couple of cases, the First World War. I don't think there's anybody here from the Civil War, are they? No, okay. We recognize the sense of loss, the sense of despair, the sense of, oh my God, it's over, or it's getting to be over. And all I'm standing here doing is saying, yeah, because if you don't change your ability to deal with change, and if you don't change your attitude to being grateful for your ability to make those changes, to live aspirationally, to live within the context of your values and your vision, again, we will continue to repeat, but the good news is we do see pockets of growth, pockets of understanding. We're small because the popularity of our point of view, considering the psyche of the world and the psyche of our general citizenry in this country, is not akin to what we're striving to do. People, as I've mentioned to you before, are not looking for justice as we want justice. Most people are looking for vengeance. Again, over and over and over. So I am grateful that I have the ability to look beyond my capacity for vengeance, which, by the way, is rather great. so that I can hopefully develop an attitude of gratitude that I have love, that love can lead the way. Love will lead the way, but we have to accept it and allow it and not stand rigidly against it. That is what gratitude is all about. That is the gratitude that I'm hoping that each and every one of you shares, whether it be this Thanksgiving or as we progress out into the future. And to that end, I wish you the most blessed Thanksgiving or Friendsgiving that you've ever had. Thank you. Pardon me. We now come to our closing hymn as we prepare for announcements and our closing words, and of course the extinguishing of our chalice. Let's turn to hymn number 183.
And so I changed my mind about 183. Flip over to 188.
As I said, let's turn in your hymnal to 188.
And sorry about that, folks. I was hoping Mr. Ewing was trying to call me because I think he's being tardy for his piano lesson.
The only announcement that I have for you from, as they say, my neck of the woods, is that we will be very grateful to see you on the first Sunday of December. Climate withholding, but hopefully it'll be a nice day. If you don't see my wife, you'll know she didn't think the climate was very good, but chances are I will be here. I will keep you abreast of what's going on. I don't think I'm going to have to be at this particular juncture. They say I'm going to be out of commission for, well, when they say 3 to 4 days, I'll say 3 to 4 weeks. No. I'm a big baby. I'm not a good, you can ask my wife, I'm not a good patient. I am terrible. My dogs were better patients than I was. But anyway, we'll keep you abreast of what's going on. The one thing I will share with you, which is kind of interesting, the director of ministry in our congregation, as well as music, is very OCD and likes to play it to the edge of reality, and pointed out to me that the first Sunday of April was Easter Sunday. And I said, yeah. She says, well, we've got to talk about that because you're going to be in Niagara Falls. And I said, well, bearing that it's Easter Sunday, I might be able to make a switch. No, you're not going to switch. So I will be with you on Easter Sunday. And much to possibly your lament, I do a real interesting Easter Sunday service, if I may say so myself. So we encourage you to consider that, or when you're considering your travel plans. Anyway, so And of course, we ask you to please stay with us after the service. I'm sure there's coffee, tea, goodies, sympathy, etc., in the fellowship hall after the service. Those are the only announcements I have. Would you, Erica?
Hi, I just wanted to mention that we have a board meeting this Saturday. And then I spoke with Donna. She'll be here. She wants to be here in person for the November service. I think she's here on the 16th.
Okay. And for our closing words, we gather together as brothers and sisters, united in the mystery, the great unknowable, that which many choose to call God or good, that which we choose to many times simply in our consciousness refer to as the great question mark. There are so many opinions, there are so many ideas, and yet we know that ultimately the best way to identify with that which we do not understand and that we have absolutely, virtually no ability to comprehend is strictly to, again, love ourselves and love our neighbors as ourselves. And so we gather. We gather knowing that as we approach this season called Thanksgiving, we look not to ignore history. We look to the Howard Zins, the Chris Hedges, the Albert Einsteins, those who have lived history and are not willing to lie about it, not willing to candy coat it, not willing to whitewash it, but to acknowledge that those are areas where we have missed the mark. And in order to gain more than we have lost, we strive to covenant with life itself, to covenant with each other, to be loving, giving, caring, to seek true justice, not vengeance, to seek the peace that surpasseth all mortal understanding, and in doing so, feeling that sense of gratefulness to be part of a great movement forward in human evolution, a movement that will always be something that we can be humbled by and yet still very proud of being participants in. And so we say thank you. Thank you to infinite life. Thank you to each other. Thank you to the great cause that we have taken up, and do so in joy and again in thanksgiving. Amen. We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Amen.
And this has nothing to do with what you talked about. Just want to do it. I think I can. I cut my bangs with some rusty kitchen scissors. I screamed his name till the neighbors called the cops. I numbed the pain at the expense of my liver. I don't know what I did next, all I know I couldn't stop. Word got around to the barflies and the Baptists. My mama's phone started ringing off the hook. I hear her now saying she ain't gonna have it. Don't matter how you feel, it only matters how you look. Go and fix your makeup, girl, it's just a breakup running. Hide you crazy, start acting like a lady, 'cause I raised you better. Gotta keep it together even when you fall apart. This ain't my mama's broken heart. I wish I could be just a little less dramatic, like a Kennedy when Camelot went down in flames. Leave it to me to be holding the matches when the fire truck shows up. Well, there's no one else to blame. Can't get a bit of revenge and keep a spotless reputation. Sometimes revenge is a choice you gotta make. My mama came from a softer generation where you get a grip and you bite your lip just to save a little face. Go and fix your makeup, girl, it's just a breakup running. Hide you crazy, start acting like a lady, 'cause I raised you better. Gotta keep it together even when you fall apart. This ain't my mama's broken heart. Powder your nose, paint your toes, line your lips and keep 'em closed. Cross your legs, dot your eyes, and never, ever, ever let them see you.